Hello there, Internet. We got an interesting one today. A couple things I want to say before we get into it. So I probably should just get this in frame so you at least know what we're talking about. What if I leave you with a shadow? Ooh, what about that? It's kind of cool. But wait, you know what this is, right? Thumbnails, we've talked about this. This is the Talisman, Spin God's Talisman by Fabian over at Spin Space. So he kind of announced this guy. It actually came together pretty quick. He had been talking about working on a spinner, but by the time he announced it, prototype, got it out, took pre-orders, got it out, got it shipped, it all came together really quick. So let's open this up. Let's spin it a little bit. Then maybe we'll talk about it just so we can have some spin going. So design-wise, yeah, it's a big, thick, chunky brass guy. It's got a nice kind of stone-washed finish. Buttons are really nice. These buttons are actually, they feel a lot smaller than they look. They kind of look like normal size buttons, but they actually feel pretty tiny, yet they actually, I really like the feel of these guys quite a bit. We've got some rounding on the sides of the buttons as well. So let's just get this guy spin, shall we? Oh yeah, spin's good. Oh, it looks like a little star. That's cool. I haven't really done any warps or anything like this. I got it last night, was spinning inside. But when we do our reviews outside, you guys get to see the warps. Maybe we'll do a little slower. Try that. There we go. Wow. Nice, pretty. So, let's switch the buttons off, see what we're looking at inside. One thing about these buttons, and this is actually just kind of a pro tip across the board, if you have buttons that kind of like to stick, what you can do is you can unscrew the button most of the way, and whichever side is stuck, rather than pushing it all the way out, you just, oops, I should have shown you like, and then that way it loosens up the other side that's actually stuck, the female side, because that's the one with a wider post, right? So we can take these off. Oh, we're getting some condensation in there. It's hot out today. So we've got a dedicated screw over here. Yeah, this little rounding on the side actually feels really nice. So these are really smooth buttons, but really give a lot of grip. So really impressed with the button design on here. Happy to say. And then these are sweet, sweet buttons. They're the Ultra Spinners Ergo style buttons in 18mm, so they got those cool steps. They've got these laser etched lines on them. They're heat treated. Really nice buttons, y'all. Now again, these are a little smaller. They're 18mm, but because of the way it's raised up, you really feel like you're grabbing probably 2 centimeters in on each side. So you probably feel like you're dealing with like a 14mm button, which actually all of a sudden seems pretty tiny. It's probably the same reason why these buttons feel tiny, right? Like you've got this dish in the middle. And then it's, again, you're probably losing 2mm on each side. Sorry, flies landing on my arm. 2mm on each side, so the buttons probably feel a little smaller than they actually are. Inside we've got almost guaranteed that's a glued bearing, not a press fit. I don't know what BR20 is. 20 is probably the serial number, the number made. But the little package I got had a post-it with a word with the number 20 on it. So, but yeah, so they're a nylon cage hybrid ceramic bearing. They feel pretty good. They remind me a lot of, and I don't think they are, I think they're a little different. They remind me of the Spinetic hybrid ceramics with the nylon cages. I don't know, I don't think they are, but they remind me of it. So it comes with an extra set of buttons that are a nice upgrade, nice touch. Comes with an extra bearing, so this is just another of the exact same bearings. Just so you have one in case you had an issue with it, or again, you want to throw in another spinner, it's nice. I like having extra bearings, so. And these buttons feel real nice too. Now these buttons are definitely a lot taller. Right, if you look, try and get the shadow out of there right properly. But you can see they're quite a bit taller. So this still allows for table spins, but it's real close to the body. These really stand up. So even if the buttons seem a little small, if you got big fingers, these should work really well for you. Plus they look sweet. Right, they look really sweet. Spin it slowly, let you take a look at those. I really like how on the inside of the buttons, I don't know if we can get it to really focus in that close. Maybe we can zoom. We don't do this too often in our videos. Pow. You guys are seeing that better than I'm seeing it in real life, in IRL. But it's got some nice steps as it gets deeper into the middle. So it just looks really cool. They're really cool looking buttons. If I'm being real picky about the buttons, one of the buttons wobbles a tiny bit. Whereas one of the other buttons, I shouldn't say wobble, it seems like the screw or the post is just ever so slightly off center, so one seems to wobble a little bit more when you're spinning it, but that doesn't do anything for the feel when you're actually spinning it in your hand. So how is this guy to spin? It is just about 100 grams, so it's a heavy spinner. which I like. You guys know I like that. It's got really thick arms, and then it's got a thin body, right? The body, it doesn't need a retaining ring or anything, so that body can be just as thin as the bearing. And these buttons I think will work on a lot of other spinners, by the way. I haven't tried, but you can see that the buttons sit pretty far off the body, so they should work with bearings that use that kind of classic China-made retention system. But how is this guy to spin? So again, it's a heavy spinner. So a lot of times with heavy spinners, sometimes they're not as fidgetable. But what I found with this guy is you pick it up and you immediately get how to use this thing. All the edges are rounded, everything feels really nice. All these corners just really smooth, feel really good, no hot spots anywhere. Being with as heavy as it is, the weight though is more distributed here. So what it allows you to do is, it's really interesting that despite being really heavy, you can really flick this really fast. It doesn't feel like that kind of like real heavy spinner. It doesn't feel like something like the Hammer of God, for example. When you go to spin it, you really can get good grips on this guy and spin it really good. These cutouts here also allow you to get your finger in here and do really good pushes and pulls, but you also get really good pushes and pulls grabbing it on the top. And it's pretty easy to stop on the top too. You just saw I nailed a couple there right in a row. So again, you guys know this isn't my style of fidgeting, but it works really well for that style if that is your style. So this was really designed with, you know, fidgetability in mind, from what I can see. So I said I was going to start with some things that I wanted to say, but I realized I probably really should talk about the spinner first. But I kind of really wanted to, you know, talk about just a bit. I don't want to blow up the guy's spot, but talk about Fabian and his channel a little bit, because, you know, I think for the most part people get what he's about and dig him, but you know, just like anything else, you get haters, and I just kind of wanted to talk about that a little bit. You know, one of the big things that I think comes off is, you know, he seems maybe a little pretentious, and I get where people say that, but I don't really feel that. You know, from where he's coming from, he's got a lot of influence on the scene, as you know, has worked with a lot of makers, done a lot of reviews, and I'm sure made more than one or two makers change up designs for the better for us. So I really dig what he does in the community and what he's part of, and you can tell with something like this, he gets it, right? We got a spinner that's coming with extra buttons. We got a spinner that's coming with an extra bearing. We got a spinner that's smooth all around. We got a spinner that's fun to play with in hand. For me, right, it's nice and heavy, so I dig it. So I just wanted to address that real quick. You know, I love what the guy's doing over there, and I know that's not going to change probably anybody's opinion who doesn't like him, and it's, you know, if you already like him, then good on you. But I just kind of wanted to put my 2 cents out there and say I'm a fan of what he does over there. So it's definitely one of the channels I started following early on and kind of got me into spinners to begin with. So if you like my channel, you got him partially to thank for it. So there's that too, right? So bam, that feels good right there. Like that's like the perfect fit for my finger too. So again, I've got big hands and long fingers, but they're skinny fingers, right? So despite having big hands, I've got skinny fingers. So if you have small to medium, kind of what I might call normal size hands, boom, that's perfect. If you got big old fingers, they might not fit in there too well, but I still have a little room to play, but that is just comfortable. You know what? That is just like great for flicking. Pulling with these, I think he calls them flipper tabs, which I think it's flipper type design. Boom, really good. So this guy goes for 90 bucks, and I think it's worth it, all things considered. US made, extra buttons, extra bearing, big old chunky piece of brass. I would be surprised to see the stainless steel come out at that price point. I know he mentioned he was having some issues, I think, with the size. Look how big those arms are, right? With the size of these arms and then the size of the center in here, I think there were some issues machining, and you can actually see that a little bit if we look here. It's hard to see. Some of those edges there look almost like they've been kind of like dented or hit or something like that. So a couple minor finishing things that aren't perfect. I imagine this is going to be harder to finish in stainless steel. Hope my phone doesn't overheat. Try to give it some shade here. I can't imagine this is going to be really easy to do in stainless steel and get like a really nice finish, because you can kind of see some of the brass marks. Or not the brass marks, the machining marks along the side, even though it looks like it's trying to go for a stonewash finish. So the finish isn't smooth, isn't seamless, but it feels seamless. It feels fine. You don't really have that, but it looks like when you see the way the light reflects, you almost feel like could be a little tiny bit of extra subtle rounding there. But again, that's just being nitpicky. But the biggest reason I bring it up is, again, I think when the stainless comes around, you know, brass is a softer metal and easier to do that with. So I'm hoping the stainless steel comes out all right. So by the sounds of things as well, with the issues they were having with brass, they might not make it anymore in brass, and I think that would be a shame, because I love the weight of this guy with its form. It's not the longest spinner, but it's a decent spinner. Out of the box, 5 minutes on a table spin, pretty much exactly 5:01, and then on a vertical spin, like pretty much exactly 7 minutes. So we got really good spin times out of this, but all its mass isn't distributed on the outside, which makes it a little more fidgetable. Again, sacrifices spin time a little bit. We got hybrid ceramic bearings in there, so you know what that means. It means that'll break in a little bit. So spin time should increase, but that's plenty of spin time for this kind of a spinner. So yeah, really nice. If you were thinking about getting one, if you like the look, I think you really appreciate how this guy works. It somehow manages to draw a sweet spot between being a really heavy spinner and giving you good hand feel, yet still being really fidgetable. So again, just shows kind of he's in touch with what's going on. He knows what he likes, and this is definitely a spinner that's right up my alley. So I'm a big fan of this. If I had to do my top 10 video again and had this guy for just a little bit longer to really give more of a long-term thoughts on it, it probably would be in the top 10. It kind of fills a similar niche as my Stealth Aventador and my brass full-size Cortex. And I'm not quite sure where it would stack up against those. But yeah, really pleased with this guy, really happy. I was kind of like, I was sick of ordering spinners, to be honest with you. I keep spending money and ordering new spinners and was really hoping for a little bit of a lull, and this thing came out, and yeah, I think it's, I think if nothing else, from one YouTube reviewer to another, I owe it to him to do a review and pick it up. But again, I'm happy with it, so I'm happy to keep this in rotation. It's definitely going to get carried. So yeah, that is the Talisman, the Spin Gods Talisman. Maybe someone can correct me if I'm wrong as well, maybe address that real quick. Spin God sounds like a pretty full of yourself kind of a name, but as I understand it, that's not actually what he calls himself. That was just people praying to the Spin God during his giveaways, so not praying to him specifically, but just to the Spin God for him to get lucky. So for what it's worth, if you got concerns about that. But if he is the Spin God, well, yeah, maybe he's a little full of himself, but I think he's got a right to be a little bit. So keep doing what you do over there. I'm gonna keep doing what I do. And what do I do? Hang on, let's see if I can get it. Trying to get that. It's hard to get that warp with my left hand on the pole. There it is. Peace.